What's up, folks? Just about to go live with Shawn Wells. He'll be joining me in soon, aka the ingredientologist, the world's greatest formulator. Welcome, Sam. Alright, just waiting to join in. Okay. Right.
Okay.
Good.
It's good.
It's definitely.
Definitely on your end. All right. Let me turn off the speaker. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. So I'm just going to do it through the phone
Okay.
and just, uh, yeah. So I have my Zoom muted and the volume off. All right.
The sound quality's good on mine.
Okay. Cool.
Alrighty, welcome everyone to yet another episode of the Your Biology podcast. Today I'm joined in with Shawn Wells, the man who really pioneered a lot of the outstanding ingredients in the pre-workout market, energy formulations, and all that good stuff. So Shawn is definitely a man of inspiration for me. He's definitely pioneered a lot. So Shawn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, brother. I'm excited to be on.
Awesome. So, Shawn, do you want to give my listeners a bit of a little background into, I guess, maybe your journey into becoming an ingredientologist?
Uh, Man, it's been a long journey. I've been doing supplements for about 20 years. I initially went to a business school for my undergrad, Babson College, and that was where I thought I'd end up, is just doing business. People told me it's smart to do business. Uh, but I ended up, I was overweight. I wasn't in shape, and I ended up like working out and getting like these Iron Man magazines and Muscle Media and all these different magazines and reading those and looking into supplements and hitting the weights and I started changing my body. And I ended up going to my doctor between my sophomore and junior year, and he told me, he just looked at me when I said, I was telling him about supplements, and he told me, he drew out this lifeline. He said, why not be happy between here and here? And like, just this random doctor really changed my life path. This between 20 and 80, that he wrote. Like, it's kind of like there's a poem about like living your life between the dash. And that's kind of like what he said, like the year that you're born, the year that you die, like this poem says, like your life is lived between the dash. And so this guy like really just gave me the courage to just pursue this path of nutrition. So I finished up my bachelor's in business and marketing, and then I ended up getting my master's in nutrition. But that was a long path, and I ended up focusing on biochemistry, and and I became a biochemist, a registered dietitian, certified sports nutritionist. But I had a lot of health issues that really kind of drove me. I was, like I said, obese as a child, and I became anorexic over time because I had issues with my body and body dysmorphia. And then I had autoimmune issues from just pushing too hard in my life and probably not loving myself enough. And I got Epstein-Barr virus, Hashimoto's, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and then later on I got a pituitary adenoma, brain tumor. And all of this stuff like made me focus on the ways I could fix myself. And so that became a huge focus for me, and why I started looking into supplements. And, at the time, like, supplements were more magic bullets. And for me, that was like the mode I could go down, like, plant medicine, biohacking, and meditation and breath work and all that stuff really weren't a thing back then. Like, all the magazines I was reading, all the stores I would walk in was supplements. That was the growth of supplements when I started, coming up. So that's where I put my faith.
Right. So, Shawn, I guess there's a lot to unpack there, but I really wanted to, discuss a lot on some of the novel ingredients that you've really, brought to market. And in fact, a lot of them I've personally experimented with and blown away by. And let's sort of start out with the first one, which is tea cream. So you want to give my listeners a bit of a background into tea cream?
Yeah, so tea cream is a methylxanthine. It's in the caffeine family. And really there's, we knew about theophylline, we knew about theobromine. Those have been used in supplements or in bronchodilator medications. But some of the other ones hadn't been used: theacrine, liberine, methyliberine. And I was reading some research and working on coming out with this compound. And I ended up having a random call with a fellow ISSNer, Dr. Hector Lopez, and Dr. Tim Ziegenfuss. And we started talking about this ingredient, theacrine, and we said, what if we come out with this? And they knew I had like really great connections in China with my partners. And so they had tried working on it themselves, and they were coming up with, a price of like $20,000 a kilo. And it just, for that price, it isn't feasible. But I came up with a price around 2,000. And we ended up like refining our process and getting that price further down to where it was feasible to come out on the market. But theacrine is more a longer acting like half-life than caffeine. Dynamine, which is methyliberine, is more similar to caffeine, more quick acting. So those two ingredients have been just incredible. They've been in almost everything, like pre-workouts, energy drinks, fat burners, nootropic products. And dynamine, like I said, is going to be faster acting. So it's getting used more in pre-workouts, and, you're getting tea cream getting used more in like the nootropic fat burner, kind of longer acting. And then people are titrating the two, and like they're obviously working synergistically, and both work synergistically with caffeine as well. The great thing is the ingredients don't have the habituation, the adaptation that caffeine has. So it works the same way every single time. And with caffeine, you have that diminishing returns, that adaptation, where it doesn't work as well, and where people say, like, literally, like, I need my coffee to get going. They're right. Like, their brain isn't functioning as well. Like, there's been studies that show, like, after so many days of caffeine use, you need that level of caffeine just to get to baseline. So you're not going above and beyond, you're getting to baseline, meaning typically you're functioning suboptimally. So that's the nice thing about tea cream and dynamine, is you're not in that suboptimal state. You're in a better state. So you're going above and beyond, and that's what's great. So, and those ingredients, like I said, are in over 500 products. We have over 10 studies between them. They're both GRAS, meaning generally recognized as safe, and occur naturally. So really great stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've personally experimented with all of them, and I remember the very first day that I read about T-Creen, I was really enthusiastic, and I wanted to. I think, in fact, in the early days, I was one of the first to actually implement it in a nootropic product in Australia, because it was a long time ago, and I found it. I read some studies, and I was impressed, and I was like, it'd be worthwhile considering this as a constituent in my nootropic formula. And I really think that was like the heavy hitter that sort of extended the nootropic effects of the entire product. So definitely a huge fan of T-Creen. And Shawn, I want to sort of understand a bit more about how you go about, I guess, do you spend much time actually researching novel compounds and things like that?
I do. I spend several hours a day doing that. Probably, 2 to 3 hours a day just looking at research and looking for, certain pathways I want to exploit, or certain compounds coming from some of the herbs I have access to. There's a variety of ways I might, come upon this, or I might look at a medication that's successful, or a pathway that a lot of research is going into, and that's definitely something that I would do, and then that just leads me down the rabbit hole.
So, Shawn, you just briefly mentioned you look at some medications, and I know one of them, which I think you may have modeled or used it as a basis, is Metformin. So I guess that's an opportunity for us to segue into this particular Berberine derivative. So do you want to enlighten my listeners on this DHB?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Berberine is something I had done some considerable research in and become a huge fan of first. I formulated a product, IC5, for BioTrust. I had 5 different compounds, kind of 5 mechanisms of action, but Berberine is the one that blew me away. Like, I did a carbohydrate challenge when I was in keto, and 1 week I did one with the carbohydrate challenge and Berberine, and one with nothing and the carbohydrate challenge. And my challenge was, I think, 5 double stuffed Oreos, 2 frosted Pop-Tarts. And my baseline blood glucose was around 65. And within 2 hours, without taking the Berberine, I was at 199, which is insane. But also, being keto, if you're strict keto, you're potentially a little bit insulin resistant. So that can happen if you're not metabolically flexible, so to speak. But I tried it a week later, and this is crazy. Like, again, I was at the same number, about 65, 70, and I never got above 100. And at 1 hour, I was coming back down. And I was like, this stuff is the real deal. And I already knew from a lot of my anti-aging research that everyone loved Metformin in all these anti-aging circles. And if you know anything about advanced glycation end products and glycation's role in inflammation and oxidation and spinning out of mitochondrial dysfunction and just all these pieces with sirtuin genes and telomere length, and there's just, if you can control that, if you can lower hemoglobin A1C, you can take a big crack at inflammation, oxidation, and mitochondrial dysfunction and aging in general. And if this data is you can extrapolate the data out from Metformin, it's about 2.5 years of life that it can add to your life. So, Berberine in a study was shown head-to-head to be as good as, and potentially outperform in some categories, Metformin. And Metformin recently has been shown, 1, to lower B12, and 2, had been tainted and involved in a recall. So, I mean, berberine, gets the nod every time for me. The problem with berberine, and this is similar to metformin, is you get some GI distress. And at least a third of people just experience this regardless. And then, berberine, you just have to take higher doses, 5, 6, 700 milligrams 3 times a day with each meal. And the solution here was dihydroberberine is the active metabolite that berberine converts into across that brush border in the intestine when it's being taken up. And eventually that dihydroberberine converts back to berberine in the plasma. But what's amazing here is dihydroberberine is about 5 times more bioavailable. So you can lower the dose pretty dramatically. And then on top of that, you're bypassing that GI distress that comes up. So it's a win-win. And we're seeing doses, 150 milligrams twice a day, having as good, if not better, effects than the 500 milligrams 3 times a day. So you really can take like 2 small pills instead of 6 large capsules a day.
Yeah, it's definitely, when I learnt about the dihydroberberine, I think it was on the Price Plow interview you did, which was awesome. And they were discussing, the opportunity for formulators to reduce the dosage, to pack it into various GDAs. So that was that caught my attention, which was, quite unique. And I know that bioavailability is it's often an issue, right? With a lot of the compounds that you pioneer or hunt down. Like, so what is it about? So I guess maybe in terms of like bioavailability, what is it about that dihydroberberine that makes it, ability? You said that it gets regenerated back into berberine in the plasma. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just literally berberine has to convert to this dihydroberberine, which just has some extra H's, if you will, like across that lining of the gut, and then those are removed, and it's gone back to berberine in the plasma. So yeah, it's pretty simple, and this happens a lot in the body with molecules. There's actually a form called tetrahydroberberine too, but really everything has to convert back to this dihydroberberine really to optimally get across the gut. So you're not having to go through that process of pulling water and getting the GI distress to make this compound to make it bioavailable. So it's in its active form. It easily crosses the gut, doesn't need conversion, and then will turn into plasma berberine. And we're doing a study right now that shows that like berberine and dihydroberberine head to head with like area under the curve and plasma levels of berberine. So that'll be coming out soon.
Oh, that's exciting. I look forward to. Yeah, I'll be sharing that to my listeners because I've got the Glucovantage, the standalone on my website. So for those listening in that want to actually experiment with DHB, definitely check that out on my site because it's a very novel ingredient, and I'm super impressed by it. So Shawn, let's sort of transition over into the next compound, L-Baba.
Yeah, that one's really exciting. Like, this is one of those ones where, people, talk about the holy grail of, exercise, and you've heard that with, beta-alanine and creatine and all those things. But honestly, like beta-alanine and creatine can't hold a candle to BABA. BABA is actually the signal for intense exercise. When you're exercising intensely, L-BABA levels go up in the plasma, and it tells your body to turn on all these different things, 100 different things. You think about all the things associated with exercise, with increased BDNF, like neuroplasticity in your brain. You're able to learn better and take on new tasks. improved VO2 max and various cardiovascular functions, improved like immune system and recovery, improved body composition changes and elevations in AMP-K, changes in bone mineral density, changes in muscle mass, strength and power. Like all these changes that happen with intense exercise are signaled from L-beta, and then so many other like mechanisms just like start, and it's really incredible. Everything that we're seeing associated with L-beta makes this truly exciting. And I could say that it's literally an exercise mimetic, and you can get some of these benefits just sitting on the couch. But FDA wise, they're not a big fan of that. So they always want to say like with good diet and exercise. So we're going to market it as an exercise amplifier to get more reps and more steps out of every exercise. And you actually catabolize the BCAA pool from the muscle. This is taken from L-valine, and it makes L-beta. And interestingly, I don't know this for sure, but L-beta is very chemically similar to beta-alanine. And one of the, after I haven't shown this, and no data I've seen has shown this, but I'm just guessing this is like the way the body would work. This makes a lot of sense, is that after that signal goes out, that substrate is used for something and converted into something. And my guess is it would either be converted back to valine, back to the muscle, or it would get converted to beta-alanine.
Right, okay. So with L-beta, Shawn, so I also read that it had some interactions with, is it brown fat influencing the brown adipose tissue as well?
Exactly, it does. And I love mitochondrial health, and brown adipose tissue has been a big area of my research. The reason brown adipose tissue is brown is because it's so mitochondrial dense. And it's really fascinating. This tissue, like you only have maybe about 6 ounces of brown adipose tissue on you, and it's mostly here around your neck. And what's fascinating about it is, like, we thought that it was just for like mice, and we thought it was for babies, like when they lack the ability to shiver in that first 6 months. It's like how they can create thermogenesis heat, really get body heat to survive. But what's interesting is we're now seeing it may be like that great equalizer, and like why some people stay lean and others don't. They may have, one, more brown adipose tissue cells, adipocytes, and 2, it may be more active. We found that in some people it's more active than others, and that could be people that are exposed to the cold more often, or just are people that seem to run hot, like have a higher body temperature. Even like a 0.5 degree could make a massive difference in just caloric expenditure. So yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. Beta does affect brown adipose tissue, does upregulate it. And then there is a compound that I've worked with that we have as well, called Grains of Paradise, and has a compound 6-paradoxine, and that compound has been shown, in particular, really there's 4 compounds that are present in Grains of Paradise extract, but this one in particular has been shown to again increase the output from brown adipose tissue. And I want to say, like, the caloric expenditure just from 30 milligrams in one study, 40 milligrams in another, just once a day, was something in the order of like 120 calories to 150 calories. That's insane. This is not a stimulant. it's not anything. And so studies haven't been done at 80 milligrams or twice a day or 3 times a day. And so what does this ingredient do if you take it consistently? And the way, and Grains of Paradise does seem to work on this vanillin receptor, which is very similar to how capsaicin works as well, like Capsamax. I just think the dose is so concentrated, and it's not as potent in terms of its spiciness, because it is kind of a ginger-like flavor. It's actually been used in beer, like Sam Adams, and like it's used as a spice, like to add flavor to dishes. So pretty cool stuff. So yeah, like a lot of really cool ingredients for sure. It's stuff that I'm very, very excited. There's actually, I don't know if you know about ergothioneine, speaking of mitochondrial health, but do you know about ergothioneine yet?
As in, is it a metabolite in like the citric acid cycle or something somewhere along the line?
No. So ergothioneine is we have it through NNB as mitoprime. So what it does is, in very small amounts, you can find it in mushrooms. And we're finding it's amino acid. And we're finding that just 5 to 10 milligrams is the efficacious dose. So super small amount of an amino acid. But what's fascinating here is it's an antioxidant that really trumps all antioxidants because it works at the mitochondrial level. And a lot of cellular antioxidants, we don't see the results that we've wanted to see, like, in terms of performance and anti-aging. And, sometimes antioxidants may hinder gains, right? You've heard about that. Also, there's a threshold where an antioxidant becomes pro-oxidant. What's fascinating here, though, is this protects the mitochondria. It helps with mitochondrial function, preventing dysfunction. Also promotes mitochondrial biogenesis, creating more mitochondria. The really fascinating part is that there is this ET1 transporter. So ergothioneine has its own transporter system in the body. And therefore, it's being researched that maybe this should be a vitamin, and there is, in fact, deficiencies. Even more interesting is there's storage of ergothioneine in your body with this system. So we actually store it to use it and protect ourselves. So anyone who knows anything about me or just where anti-aging is going and performance is going, mitochondrial is it.
Yeah.
So literally cellular energy, the mitochondrial, the powerhouse of the cell, right? So literally cellular energy is from the mitochondria, and the better it's functioning, the better your cellular energy, your recovery, your longevity, your resilience, your protection from damage, from aging, from getting hurt, from whatever it is, from stress, all relates to the mitochondria. So that one's super exciting as well. Ergothioneine, that's one to look for.
Definitely, and I'm really glad that you brought up obviously the importance and significance of mitochondrial function, because it really is the way of the future in terms of not only for like energy enhancing formulas. You got the standard coenzyme Q10, PQQ, Alcar. You've got a whole range of mitochondrial enhancers, even methylene blue as well. I've played around with, which has been pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's definitely, and even the L-Beta you mentioned before, like that has also been shown to positively affect the mitochondrial function. So it's really cool to, I guess, see more and more emphasis on the mitochondrial function. And when we look at like Metformin, there's like debates around whether or not that's actually
let's talk about that. So that's the way that works is you may think that something that could hinder the function of the cell or the mitochondria could be counterproductive, but it's not. We know we go to the gym and break down our muscles and work hard and expend calories so that we adapt and grow.
Mm.
That idea is called hormesis in the body. And more specifically with the mitochondria, it's called mitohormesis. And at the right dose, you're promoting mitochondrial hormesis with berberine or dihydroberberine. You're taking your mitochondria to the gym. It's great you're doing, so ergothioneine is protecting it, and L-Beta and Grains of Paradise are promoting it, but dihydroberberine is taking it to the gym.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. I love that analogy. So, Shawn, just in terms of like when you discover these ingredients and like you want to do extensive research on them, do you also like consider like different applications in terms of like I know this is what came to my mind this morning. I'm like, I wonder if Shawn ever, whenever he finds an ingredient, does he consider using them as a patch? Does he consider using them as an eye drop? Does he, I just how creative do you want to get sometimes?
You know, it's funny you bring that up because actually there is research with dihydroberberine when used transdermally is 30x better than berberine. And whether that would have some localized impact could be very interesting. Let's say for me, for whatever reason, I grew up with that gynoid fat distribution versus android. So I have kind of the big thighs. That's where I put fat, typically where girls put fat. Guys tend to have it viscerally, like the android fat distribution. Now maybe, I could put this on, transdermally and not only get systemic benefits, clearly that's been shown at 30x, plasma levels, but maybe there would be enhanced localized benefits if I rubbed it on my, thighs, and maybe if you rub it on, your six pack or whatever. That would be interesting to find out. I think about that stuff all the time. Yeah, there's carriers like DMSO that you can use, and you have to take care when you do some of these things. When you do intranasal, when you do anal, when you do transdermal, like you're bypassing the liver. Yeah. And the liver is kind of like the great detoxifier and kind of regulator. And yes, you can have, more bioavailability, more bang for your buck. But like, for example, like, these guys that, do alcohol anally, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but like, it happens in some of these college fraternities and whatever, and they go from zero to drunk to dead very quickly because the liver is not involved. So, I mean, you have to be careful with just bypassing the liver with any of these methods. You just have to know what you're doing, and I would take great care. So, especially if it's anything that could involve side effects, like, typically I don't get hypoglycemic from berberine, but I've had maybe like 1 out of 25 or so do, and I don't know why. Like some people get just nauseous and like bottom out, but like the majority of people don't, and I don't have an answer for why that happens or how that happens, but that is interesting. So like, obviously, like for those people, if they were to experiment transdermally, maybe it could be bad. So I don't know, like I always feel safer going that oral route, and the FDA does as well. So that's what I tend to do.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I'm the same as you there. When I'm looking up, novel flavonoids and constituents. Like, for example, there is one that I think I'd love to share with you. I don't know if you've heard about it's Heterogenin. It's
Yes.
a yeah, in
Yes.
terms of psychoactive properties.
Yeah, you like it?
I personally haven't been able to find a reliable vendor or like source it because it's very difficult and delicate. I know like even its reuptake inhibition properties are super potent. So I got to sort of again, you have to know what you're doing in terms of dosages and converting rat dosages to human dosages and stuff.
Well, send me that information. I think I already know what you're talking about. I'm about 90% sure. But send me that information and we can make it happen.
Yeah, and the other thing is I had a chat with Gorilla Chemist. I mean, I'm sharing compounds with him all
Yeah.
the time. We go back and forth, and I shared in one study where that lion's mane was equally as effective as a particular SARM. I think it was Osterine or something like that. Or no, sorry, it was a different sort of aerobic GW 56 anything.
Oh, 5156. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's
But
an exercise mimetic.
yeah. The other thing is, Shawn, like, I mean, I'm again, like, I'm very similar to you, and I've got a whole Excel sheet, literally thousands of different things that I've just like heterogenin, amentoflavone, that's another one.
Yeah, I've worked on that one before. Yeah.
I sort of don't know where that one went. I mean, it came in the spotlight, and now it's just disappeared. So what's happened with that?
There's always compliance issues and there's sometimes risks with some of these things that, but especially once it gets on the FDA radar, like, these things go away. Like, a lot of these, stimulants that kind of like came after DMAA also like got on the FDA radar. And, quite frankly, sometimes things are too effective, too experiential. I've worked with a number of compounds that I've had that are like that are actually just too effective. And I know that's frustrating to hear, but like when something is too effective, the abuse potential is also high. And I worry about someone hurting themselves, there's some things that I could have released that are really, really amazing. But to be honest, like there's a dark potential with it too that worries me, that I just don't want to, put that level of risk out there.
Yeah, of course. So, Shawn, do you want to sort of mention? I know you've got 10, I think roughly 10 patents already, in the pipeline. You got some more up and coming. Are you able to sort of share maybe the ones that are related to mitochondrial function? You may have hinted at.
Yes. Well, there are ones. Let me think. With first off, like T-cream and dynamine have actually been shown to have an effect on the NAD to NADH ratio. That's something that we've worked on. But also, BABA is one that several. Yeah, there's a lot of work going on there, for sure. And ergothioneine as well. Again, like it's on that, biogenesis, protection, mitochondrial respiration kind of level, which equals just ATP production. So with mitochondrial dysfunction, which is a result of like metabolic dysfunction, and which leads to faster biological aging, and really almost all disease states like are a result of metabolic dysfunction and metabolic syndrome and all these things like insulin resistance and inflammation and oxidation, and again just heading down that path. Mitochondrial dysfunction is really at the root of that. And so anything that we can do to protect those mitochondria and increase the number of mitochondria with mitochondrial biogenesis is going to be pro longevity, reduce um, insulin resistance, reduce oxidation, inflammation, glycation, reduce ages, advanced glycation end products, And then we are typically in the state of insufficient cellular energy, which is called ICE, like an acronym. And that is because of that mitochondrial dysfunction. That is because of the Western diet and sedentary nature. And people that eat a clean, like paleo style diet, or are keto, or do more fasting, or all the above, and certainly do exercise, don't have the metabolic dysfunction, the mitochondrial dysfunction that we have, and are not in insufficient cellular energy states. They have sufficient cellular energy, so they don't have the chronic inflammation. They don't have the insulin resistance and glycation. They don't have the oxidation, and they look better biologically. Their biological age is better than their chronological age. And you can even look at like telomere length, you can test for that. Like telo years, and there's some other tests, like you probably heard Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey, and some people do these tests. But I mean, the easy test is, how do you look and move and feel for your age? Like I'm 46, I play, twos sand volleyball. I'm, in the gym every day. I'm, doing my thing. I feel like I'm, besides the white hair, but besides that, like I think I'm in a better place than the majority of people, and I do my keto and fasting and all the things I do and take my supplements. I'm in a better place than most people biologically compared to my chronological age. And then, some people are like worse than their chronological age biologically. You're like, that guy's 35, like he looks like he's 60, like they have a lot of sun damage. They have like, they're tired and, overweight and, which is insulin resistance and chronic stress. And, they just look unhealthy and they don't function well, move well. And so all of this is really what I'm talking about, is that mitochondrial health.
Yeah, Shawn, I really respect the fact that you're placing emphasis on the mitochondrial function, because, yeah, I guess like, the things you mentioned, fasting, keto, sauna usage, like exercise, all these things do help with that mitochondrial biogenesis and, help to minimize oxidative damage. And as you mentioned, that Hormesis, which is a really cool term. But I wanted to bring up a point of preventative use of GDAs. I mean, that's something that, like, regardless of if you're not diabetic, I definitely see a time and a very intelligent use of these GDAs, such as dihydroberberine, as sort of I know we can't really say preventative for diabetes because of the rules and FDA and all that, but they really can be beneficial for somebody who thinks that they're quite healthy, but underlying they may have insulin resistance slowly creeping in.
Yeah, that would be called like glucose intolerance, is kind of that phase ahead of the disease state of type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. You're just glucose intolerant, and that's so many people. And that's why I talk about all the time that we could radically change healthcare if we just did 3 blood tests, like that are so simple and probably $100 or $200 total. And if we were doing those once or twice a year, we could look at our risk for all disease. We could look at our biological age versus our chronological age. If we were looking at hemoglobin A1C as a longer term indicator of glycation / blood sugar, blood glucose, because blood glucose is just too transient up and down, obviously. And CRP, for C-reactive protein, for inflammation. And then oxidative LDL as a measure of oxidation. And then you've got that trifecta of really like the mitochondrial dysfunction. I don't have like a great blood test for mitochondrial function, but I can show you what mitochondrial dysfunction leads to, and these markers would show that. and we could create like your biological age or your disease risk of with metabolic dysfunction, you know, by having these. But unfortunately, we're looking at CRP after you've had a heart attack. We're looking at hemoglobin A1C after you're diabetic. We're looking at oxidative LDL, like, you know, too far down the road of disease pathology and progression. So that's the problem. We're not using these to be proactive. We're using them in a very reactive way. And of course, that's, you know, you can just discuss how that's Western medicine right there, but that's the way it is.
Yeah. And it wouldn't surprise me, Shawn, if various compounds that we just discussed, like the L-Beta, like the dihydroberberine, it wouldn't surprise me if they directly even affect CRP or you know, we don't have research on it, but my suspicion is there's a good chance it will. Like there's a good chance they're going to help with those markers.
There is data with dyslipidemia and inflammation with berberine, and it does positively affect them. So yes, it has been shown.
Yeah, awesome. So in terms of like, yeah, I want to know more about like what you do in terms of like structuring out maybe your research and like where you're spending most of your time now, and like what you see sort of the future. I know you mentioned mitochondrial health is an area that you're really passionate about at the moment, but where do you sort of see that heading?
Really, like longevity is my number one focus, because a lot of like my sports nutrition ideas or things that I would employ clinically when I worked as a chief clinical dietitian came from the idea of longevity and what was being done in these longevity worlds. And like I've been seeing guys for over 20 years look at hemoglobin A1C and look at CRP as like hallmarks. And they're literally like, these guys are just adding supplements and seeing how it affects each one, like day to day, like, you know, they're doing like tons of work. Longevity, like whatever you're doing to impact longevity that can add years to your life in the prime of your life can improve quality of life. That's how I look at it. It's not just adding years to your life, but life to your years. So that's what I'm looking at, is really impacting quality of life. I would say the other thing besides longevity for me of late is like brain health and mental health wellness. You know, like looking at things like traumatic brain injury, which is acute insulin resistance, by the way, and Alzheimer's is longer term insulin resistance, type 3 diabetes. But really understanding, you know, really protecting the brain, you know, increasing things like BDNF, NGF, all those things, and helping our brain be more resilient. And, you know, I think I've struggled with depression and you know, even suicidal thoughts and some things in the past, and I have a heart for mental health and wellness. And so I think not only am I a cerebral guy that, you know, wants to maximize my brain function, but I'm also someone that's struggled as well, and I care about that. So it's you know, I tend to research the things that I'm passionate about, and that's what it's going to be. I want to like take every single thing that I'm researching. That's where I'm going to stay passionate, and that's where I'm going to research. I'm not going to research things that could be a cash grab that don't align with me or aren't my passions, because it just doesn't make sense for me. And I think that's why I've been successful, is just I've been, you know, staying on that path of these are the things that excite me and I want to use. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that mindset there is incredibly inspiring for me, Shawn, because I mean what you just said there is literally, I literally feel like I'm the exact same person as you in that regard, because like I'm literally, I've set up PubMed notifications every day. First thing I do is check my Gmail, have a look at the list of new like keywords that I've saved, and I'm like, what am I going to find today? You know, and then I just add it to the list, and then like, all right, now it's a matter of sourcing it. Let's experiment. It's just, it is a fun process. Just one other question, Shawn, in regards to, um, yeah, I'm sure you've faced this many times when you've discovered an ingredient. How far away do you want to isolate it from the whole herb? Like when you
That's
may
a
have found.
great question, because obviously with pharmaceutical drugs, you want it fully isolated so you can patent it, and it's just that pure compound, and you have the assurance that it is pure, that there isn't like an X factor of some other compounds, like think of the entourage effect with some of these other cannabinoids. You know the level of CBD, but you don't get told the level of all the other things, the cannabinoids, the flavonoids, the terpenes. You don't know those levels, so therefore you could have a completely different response, from time to time. You don't know what your response is going to be from lot to lot. And when you have just a pure compound, you have the assurance that it's going to work that way every time. But nature is interesting and provides compounds that that work together in synergy. So, like for example, like a simple one for me to tell you is like green tea. So caffeine is there, right? We know that's a psychostimulant, but it also has L-theanine, and that's been shown to be synergistic with caffeine and kind of puts you in a more focused, like smoothing out the caffeine kind of mode. But it also has EGCG as polyphenol that enhances cerebral blood flow, and reduces blood glucose, and all these things that it does. Polyphenols are amazing. So the net effect of green tea is very different than taking some caffeine itself. And it's so often that I see that Mother Nature is the greatest formulator. And sometimes when we're isolating these compounds, we're losing some of the benefits, for sure. So it's an interesting question, and something I look at quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. I'm always challenging that as well. I mean, because I'm completing off my naturopathy degree. My dad's a pharmacist, so I'm in the middle of both sides. So it's yeah. I mean, there's definitely a time and place for isolation. There's definitely a time and place for whole herb, and like how do we know whether it's 40%, standardized to 30%, standardized to 20? It's just a matter of, I guess, like testing it out and trialing it on rats and things like that. So, Shawn, I think we're running to the end of the podcast. But what I'll do is I'll just cancel off the IGTV. But I wanted to just obviously wrap up and just say massive thanks for coming on the show. You have no idea how passionate and inspired you've made me with Tea Cream. Like, just even having the ability to chat with you right now, somebody who's pioneered that is incredibly inspiring. And like, honestly, like I wake up every day hoping to discover something like that. Like I say that to my audience all the time, that I hope that one day I can do something like that and really pioneer and like just.
You will. I mean, maybe I've been called like the LeBron James of formulation and ingredients, but like there's the Zion, and there's the these young guns that are coming out, like Luka Doncic, or whatever, and it's like these guys are the next guys, and that excites me. It kind of keeps like the old guy, like, keeping going, like, and keeps my fires going, that like people like you are like so passionate. And so I try and put passionate people around me, and that excites me. So, whatever I can do to help you, let me know.
That sounds awesome, man. Well, we'll wrap it up there. I'm going to shut off the IGTV, but thanks again, Shawn. For those listening in, where can they find you and your website and your other socials and stuff?
Yeah. Obviously, there's Ingredientologist here on Instagram, and all my other handles are Ingredientologist as well. And then ShawnWells.com, ShawnWells, and I have like tons of guides on there, free guides that go through vitamin C, vitamin D3, mushrooms, zinc, keto, fasting for women. Just tons of topics. I'm going through sugar right now. A lot of cool stuff. So check that out. And if you want to know more about a lot of the ingredients I'm working on, go to NNB Nutrition. NNB, like Nancy Bravo Nutrition. So yeah, check that out. And Price Plow, like, features a lot of the stuff I'm doing quite a bit as well. So a lot of places to find me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shawn. I'll just wrap this up. Thanks.
All right.